pentatonic scales in the easiest way to think about it. The easiest way that I can explain it is, first off, all the black keys on the piano. That is where we find our notes for this pentatonic scale. Now, let's try and find that same relationship. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, bum, bum. So, pentatonic scales. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Even though they're different pitches, the relationships are closer together. I think that is a speculation, Caro. I think that is a speculation, but it's not one-to-one. Skipping the 4 and the 7. The 4 and the 7. The 4 and the 7. Not the 4 and the 6. The 4 and the 7. But close. But it's a good thing. I know. You saw the Adam Neely thing too, right? I saw the Adam Neely post too. It's a good one. But yeah, pentatonic is you're just removing this. Watch what happens when we play them together, right? What is that? Can anyone tell me what this is? Yeah, it's that good old tritone. Yeah, so pentatonic scales avoid the most dissonant notes. Now, if I go up the major scale, when we make a major scale, or a minor scale, or really any modal scale, that is what we would call a heptatonic, or 7-note scales, hepta being 7. The way you differentiate all of those scales is where the half steps are. Between C to D, we have that note in between. D and E, we have that note in between. E and F, where's the note in between? There's no note in between. Then you go up, there's a note, there's a note, there's a note, there's no note. They're avoiding these half steps right here are where a lot of dissonance comes from. A minor second or a major ninth are really tense notes. The tritone, which is built off of those specific notes around those half steps, are also dissonant, tense notes. So if you just remove the note that has a half step, you get the pentatonic scale. And major and minor work the same as major and minor. C major, C pentatonic, major. A minor pentatonic. We're not skipping the 2 and the 7, the 4 and the 7 from whatever scale we're in. Key note here, it's not just the 4 and the 7, period. It's the tritone. So for minor, you're skipping the 2 and the 6. You have 1, 3, 4, 5, 7 for pentatonic minor, and you have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 for pentatonic major. Yeah, very wind chimey. And again, to re-simplify it one last time, if you really don't want to have to worry about it, just write with the black keys. Starting with F sharp, that's your pentatonic major. Starting with D sharp, that's your pentatonic minor. You can even have some really fun stuff. just by playing around with chords. It's also where the Minecraft melody comes from. That's why it's so calming and chilling, because the Minecraft melody on Sweden by C418 is literally in pentatonic major, I want to say. Do you know where the scale originated from? So pentatonic scales are kind of like, I don't have the anthropological history on it, but one of the things that we speculate as music theorists and musicologists, one thing that I have heard theorized, I don't have hard concrete data, okay? So this is somewhat speculation. Every country, or excuse me, every civilization has at some point developed onto the pentatonic scale because it utilizes two very simple rules. Rule number one, any vibration doubled creates the same sound, the same pitch, but in a different octave. If I want to go from this note up one octave, I multiply that note's vibrations, the length of the string or the length of the tube, by 2. If I shorten it by half, I go the other direction. Technically, if you want to go, technically it's, I did the wrong way. So technically, you are shrinking it by half to go up, because you're doubling the speed of the vibrations by removing half the amount of time it has to vibrate. Whereas if you're doubling the length, it goes down. Sorry, I mixed that up. But the frequency is what doubles. The length is what halves. I apologize. And the only other rule you need to get to the pentatonic scale is that the next different note after the octave in the harmonic overtone series is a perfect fifth. These are the first 6 pitches of the harmonic series, starting with our fundamental harmonic, first overtone, second, third, fourth, fifth. Taking just those rules, we can take this and we can shorten it, right, by half. We can shorten the length of the string, excuse me, we can double the length of this string. If we have a string, for example, like let's say this is a 2-foot string. This is a 1-foot string. This is 2/3 foot string, 1/3 foot string. I might have it wrong, but I'm not good at it. But it's this length divided by 3. But if you double the length of this note, we get this. So now let's go up an octave from this one. Go up to that's 5th. Okay. Let's take this, throw it down. All right, but let's throw it down one more because we can keep going. Ooh. All right, so now going up from this one, octave 5th. Take this down. Ooh. So let's go up 1 octave, 5th. This goes down. Notice how we've gotten to all the notes of the pentatonic scale, and then we go to the next note. Watch what happens. This up an octave, up a 5th. Then this goes down an octave. No! No! I'm a caveman. I am some proto-musician from like the earliest eras of music. I had all these things that sounded so good. Ah! Scary! Why does that sound so evil? It's the devil. But literally, that is the whole process of building our pentatonic scale just by following that one basic process of octave is how you change, or doubling or halving the length of a note or of a string is how you get to it. The perfect fifth is the next new note. Drop that down. Got the whole thing. Yeah, it's a circle of fifths too. Let's talk about passing chords a little bit. We're going to do diatonic passing chords. We're going to do secondary dominants, and then we're going to do planing as 3 different types of passing chords. And then I really want to get into this next topic, okay? So, if I'm in the key of C major, right? Let's do this down an octave. There's our core progression. If we're using functional harmony, which is where this idea of passing chords comes from, where in like tonal, like functional harmony, each chord has a function, which is to say there is a chord that each chord wants to go to. For example, in the key of C major, this chord right here, G major, wants to go back to the 1. It feels natural because of voice leading, because of culture, and because of other factors. But we're used to it, so that feels good. We inserted a chord in between, or this chord right here. This chord now feels like it wants to go to this chord and then come back. Every other chord that we use is essentially just replacing one of those. The 1, 4, 5, 1 is kind of our mother progression, or the progression, the primordial ooze upon which every other chord comes. Now, a diatonic passing chord is something where it's like I'm going to go from this chord right here to this chord right here. Now I know what you're saying, but Musar, that's the same chord, is it not? Isn't that the same exact sound? Well, no. The bass has changed. So watch this. Ooh. Doesn't that feel smooth? Like we've kind of gone somewhere for a moment, and then we've moved back? What if I do something like this? Ooh. Doesn't that feel really, really good, really nice and smooth? Ooh. So, passing chords are designed to help us pass through from one chord to another, right? In this situation, both chords that I use to get from here to here use some form of a passing chord that moves between the two. In this first example, going from C major to a D minor chord, that's all I'm playing, D, F, A. I'm just moving it up so I keep the voices of the chords together. Then I go back to my C, but in first inversion. E flat major 7, sure. But this is the same as if I just did this, with smoother voice leading. But the idea is the chords allow you to just kind of move seamlessly through voice leading to the next chord. This right here is a 5 chord in second inversion. The 5th is in the bass. And that allows us to smoothly move back into this chord without necessarily leaving a space. We could also try substituting certain chords. Let's do this. Right there. Yeah, and you can use these chords. Yes, that's very true. That was going to be the next step, which is between those chords, you can also try inserting chords that fulfill the same 4-5-1 function, right? Because each of these chords has that mother relationship. Now, what if I want to do that to this chord right here? This G chord, this 5 chord, before we go back to the 1. So 1, 4. Now, how would I get to that 5? Well, if we know that we can go 5, 1, and it works, let's maybe go to the 5 of our 5 chord, which is this right here, which is D major. And that allows us to just smoothly move in. We're taking a brief foray into that D major using a passing chord, a type of passing chord we'd call a secondary dominant. You can also have a secondary predominant. So I could go 1, 4, and then I could go back to C, then go to D major, and go back to G major. Now, it doesn't quite work when your root of your key is the same as one of those chords, but let's try doing a 4-5-1 to our 4 chord. Because you don't have to do a secondary dominant to go into your dominant chord. You can also do that to literally any chord. To any chord in your progression, you can do a 4-5-1 or a 5-1 to that chord. You can have a 5 of 5, that's the most common secondary dominant. You can have a 5 of 2, you can have a 5 of 3, you can have a 5 of 7. You can have all these extra chords that are just meant to provide the dominant resolution to that chord. Let's go here. And now I want to go to a 4-5 here, right? So now let's try this, which is way out of our key. And then I'm going to go to here. And then I'm going to go back to our F. And then I'm going to go to a G dominant 7 like we showed off before. And then we end up here because, as Sam mentioned, and this is something I've been saying a lot, chords do not care where they came from. Chords only care about what chord they're going to. The voice leading this chord, moving to, say, this chord. Look at what changes. This voice goes up. This voice moves down here. This voice moves down here. This voice stays here. Just like that. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. Chords don't exist. The only thing that exists is multiple voices moving in harmony with each other. That is what we perceive as chords. But this motion, as simple as it sounds, is really that melody, that melody, that melody, and that melody. That's it. That's the extent of what's happening underneath this thing we call chords. The emotion behind the voicing, exactly. Because like this is very different emotionally from this, which is very different emotionally from this, or even this. All of these different voicings of these chords lead to different emotional contexts, and it's your job as the composer to decide how those things work together. So focus on where it's going. Now, speaking of where it's going, let's talk about another passing chord. That whole thing was a passing chord, by the way. Each one of those was a passing chord. Does anyone know why? I just did a bunch of passing chords, because this is our main progression. That's our progression. But by doing that, how did I do passing chords? Can anyone tell me? Just guess if you don't know. Just think about it. I only want to hit that. So no. Sam is actually kind of hinting at it. What's going on here, right? Let me try and bring it back again. We want this chord, and this chord, before these chords are just repeats. This is the same chord. So what am I doing here? So what is this? When I go from here to here, what I'm doing is, what are these? What are the D and E chords? What is their job? What are they doing in the chord progression that we're outlining as our grandmother or our grandfather chord progression? What is the progression of this in relationship to that? It feels kind of weird, but try and think outside the box, but also don't overthink it. So what I'm doing here is called planing. Now, planing is the case where you take a melody and you stack a bunch of notes underneath it. I'm not changing the way my hand is moving. I'm holding this shape the entire time. That's it. I'm just doing the same position with my hands, but this melody is guiding these two notes like that. Harmonically, these chords are serving a weird function. They are passing us from our starting chord to this ending chord by using planing, P-L-A-N-I-N-G. Not plain as in boring, plane as in a flat surface. As in a flat surface. So I'm planing, moving everything up together, same shape, same direction, moving from our target to our destination, or our home to our destination. That is another totally acceptable chord progression. Let me show you an example. Right? See? This is ending. Those two chords right there. Those two chords. The main chord progression, the main 4-chord loop, is D minor, F major, A minor, G minor. So what is this F major, E minor doing here? What is their purpose? What is their role? What is their function? They are passing us from this ending chord back to our root by planing down, right? And you can do this in both directions. The idea is, if you have a chord and you have another chord that's more than one chord distance away, such as 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 1 to 3, 4 to 6, etc., you can use the chord that exists in between those two chords to move between them. So those passing chords you planed lead you into the root. Exactly. It doesn't have to just lead into the root. Like I'm saying, you can go bum, 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 bum. And that E minor chord is just there to pass us between D minor and F major. Same with this right here. All those extra chords, they're not actually serving a harmonic function so much as they're passing us between other broader harmonic functions, even if it doesn't necessarily work. Like, that doesn't necessarily work in the key of D minor, which is our key. We're technically in D Dorian, but our ears accept it. And you can also do chromatic passing chords in all of these same ways. So if I'm going like G to A, that totally works. That totally works. Yeah, these are all diatonic. I'm not going too far outside of the key except for secondary dominance. But as you just saw, you can do almost literally whatever you want. Almost literally whatever you want. The only thing to consider is what I've been trying to allude to here, in that there's no such thing as chords, there's only voices moving in harmony. As long as the voice leading works, where the voices aren't jumping wildly around, our ears accept them all the more. That being said, you don't have to do this. You can have chords that feel disjointed if the context is appropriate. I can have a chord progression that goes, and depending upon the kind of song I'm making, depending upon how the sounds are playing those notes, depending upon the structure of my song, that could be totally appropriate. There, in abstract, it sounds kind of weird, but context is king. Where are they going? Don't worry about where they came from. Where are they going? And use that to guide you.